In this video, we discuss about another conditional control statements, else if ladder. It is also called as if else if statement, if else if ladder. If else if ladder ensures that certain statements are executed based on given conditions. It checks the given conditions in a sequential order. That means it evaluates all the conditions in a sequential order in which they are given. It works like this. If the first condition becomes true, then its corresponding block of statements is executed. Then immediately control comes out of enter else if ladder. If the first condition is false, then second condition is checked, and if it is true, then its corresponding block of statements is executed and control comes out of enter else if ladder. This process is repeated for all other conditions. That means if the second condition is also false, that means if the first condition is false, if the second condition is false, then control goes for checking third condition and so on. This process is repeated for the given number of conditions. And the last point, if all the conditions do not met, if all the conditions become false, then automatically the statements in the final else block are executed and control comes out of enter else if ladder. We see flowchart of else if ladder statement. Now see here, there are multiple conditions. We can have any number of conditions. First of all, first condition is checked. If the first condition is true, then the statements related to the first condition, the statements in that block are executed, and then control immediately comes out of else if ladder and it will execute the remaining statements after else if ladder. That means no other condition is checked. If the first condition becomes true, then its statements are executed and control comes out of else if ladder. No other conditions are executed. Now assume that first condition is false. Then control goes for checking second condition. Control goes for checking second condition. If the second condition is true, then its corresponding block of statements are executed. Then control comes out of the enter else if ladder. Then control comes out of enter else if ladder. That means no other condition is checked. Now assume that another scenario, the first condition is false, the control comes for second condition. Now assume that second condition is also false. Second condition is also false. That means the control goes for checking third condition. Likewise, the sequence is followed. If the third condition is true, then its statements are executed and control comes out of else if ladder statement. In this fashion, the conditions are checked. Now assume that the n-1 conditions are false. That means first condition is false, second condition is false, and so on. n-1 conditions are false. Then condition n is checked. Condition n is checked. If the condition n is true, then its related statements are executed and control comes out of else if ladder statement, and the remaining statements after else if ladder are executed. And now assume that the condition n is also false. That means all the conditions are false. All the conditions are false. Then automatically the final else block statements, they are executed and the control comes out of else if ladder and the remaining statements are executed. In this fashion, else if ladder statements are executed. Now coming to the syntax here, this is the syntax. Now we see the same case here. So first of all, condition 1 is checked. All the conditions are executed in the sequential order. First condition 1 is checked. If the condition 1 is true, then its related statements are executed and then control comes out of else if ladder. No other statements are executed. This is the first scenario. And second one, now assume that if the condition 1 is false, that means second condition is checked. Now assume that second condition is true. Then its related statements are executed and then control comes out of entire else if ladder statement and the remaining statements are executed. Now assume that second condition is also false. That means first condition is false, second condition is false, then control goes for checking third condition. Likewise, it goes for n conditions. Now assume that first condition is false, second condition is false, and so on. N minus 1 conditions are false. Then nth condition is checked. Now assume that nth condition is true. Now the statements in this particular block are executed and the control comes out of entire else if ladder and the remaining statements after else if ladder, they are executed. And now assume that first condition is false, second condition is false, and so on. Nth condition is also false. Now what happens here? All the conditions are failed. Then automatically control comes to else block and all the statements in else block, they are executed and the control comes to execute the remaining statements after else if ladder. In this fashion, else if ladder statements are executed. Else if ladder statement, it is more sophisticated than if else statement in many cases. So in this video we have discussed about what is an else if ladder statement and the flowchart of else if ladder statement, and next one, syntax of else if ladder statement.